professor of biology, University of Massachusetts, and I was invited very low notice by these guys. I really want to express my gratitude for inviting me. I'm really excited to talk about the work we're doing today. And I'm going to talk, thank you, I'm going to talk to you about the Digital Life project that actually was just literally launched last week. And to give you a little background, I'm a biologist, and I want to be very honest with you, I'm not steeped in VR. In fact, I'm actually hoping to come here and learn from you guys. So I'm really looking forward to more conversations afterwards, hopefully over a couple of beverages. The basic premise of the work that I'm going to talk about today is creating accurate 3D models of life on Earth. Seems like a big challenge, and I can certify that it absolutely is a big challenge. Before I launch into this discussion of this initiative, I want to talk to you a little bit about how I got into it in the first place. So I'm a professor of biology at University of Massachusetts at Amherst, 2 hours west of us. I've worked with many different animals in my life. I've worked with reptiles, amphibians for over 25 years. I've worked in Southeast Asia, I've worked in the Caribbean. I've done a lot of field work. I'm a field biologist, but I also love technology. I've worked a lot in the last few years with big animals. I've worked a lot with sharks and sea turtles. So I've had some amazing partners and some amazing experiences, some dangerous ones as well. But throughout it all, I've always been interested in how you can use the knowledge of biology and the inspiration you get from biology, the love of biology, to inspire new technologies. And 2 technologies that I've been involved are, one is GECSkin, which together with Al Crosby at the University of Massachusetts, who's really, I'd say, the key developer of GECSkin. This was an innovation, a bio-inspired adhesive, which was developed from gecko feet. I've studied geckos for over 25 years, and a lot of people wondered, how do geckos climb? And that's something I've studied. And with that knowledge of how geckos climb, we're able to develop an adhesive that can hold 700 pounds on glass, a piece 4x4. So it's the strongest known, to my knowledge, removable and reusable bioadhesive in the world. But in the last few years, I've really gotten interested in imaging, and especially photogrammetry, which many of you are very aware of, being steeped in the VR world. And this led me to develop a whole new set of technology I'm going to talk about tonight, which is the BeastCam technology. And this is one aspect of the BeastCam technology. I brought the BeastCam array with me. It's in the back. If you saw the guy who was fiercely setting up cameras, that was me. That's it over there. After the talk, happy to show you the gear. So, to begin the story about digital life, obviously many of you are aware of the concept of digital heritage. The concept of digital heritage is the idea that with increasing uses of laser scanning and photogrammetry, we can now pretty much preserve almost everything. And this is, you can see there's no better example of this than with buildings. We can create amazing scans, 3D photorealistic buildings. We can scan skeletons in museums and so forth. And people are doing this all over the world. I mean, digital heritage is, I am a drop in the bucket, literally in it. However, there's one big piece missing from digital heritage, in my opinion, and that's life on Earth. What about digital preservation of life? And this kind of raises a lot of questions. What do we mean by life? Well, when I think of living things, I think of the human conception of living. When you interact with a living animal, it's not just the preserved specimen or the physical shape, it's the textures, the smells, the colors. It's everything. And this is actually where VR, I'd be curious to hear your thoughts on it. I'm a big fan of the idea of bringing the life of the animal to reality. And so I've worked with many of these animal species shown here, but one of the big challenges in preserving digitally these animals is, at least in 3D, is they're all such different shapes, and animals move. Now, we all know that there's been a tremendous growth in the rate of human 3D scanning, and it's really cool. I mean, there's this artist in LA named Alex Henry who's doing some amazing 3D work, and you go into his array of cameras and you sit there and you go like this, and it creates these 3D models of you, and it's awesome. It's widely used in animation and movies. Now, you might immediately think, why can't we just take that technology and use it on living animals? 2 big problems with that. Look at all the diversity of shapes and sizes you see here. Anything from just maybe 0.5 millimeter in size, or even smaller, to literally 20, 30, 40, 60 feet. And you're talking about living animals that don't always behave, they don't do necessarily what a human would want to do where you pose. They're going to do what they want. And in some cases, you're going to have animals, and I'm going to talk about sharks later on, which we're able to scan, that can be very dangerous. So you have to consider all these factors, and I think this is one of the reasons why no one has really ever tried to undertake this task. It's a daunting daunting task. So, but this kind of raises the question, why should we try? Why create 3D models of life? I'm going to argue there's three very good reasons. One is conservation, and what I mean by that, conservation of species. As a biologist, one thing I've had the opportunity to work with a lot of different animals in the world, I've seen firsthand the effects of animal loss. I've gone to habitats that I've worked in for 20 years. I go there now, they're not the same species there. I've seen species that I've looked for that have simply disappeared off the face of the earth, even in very pristine habitats. And it raises a lot of questions about why it's happening, and it's very complex. But there's no doubt about it that I think VR and 3D work can play a huge role in conservation. I'll try and explain a little bit more about that. Second is science. Let's think about sharks for a second. Okay, if you want to study a shark, the morphology of a shark, the shape of a shark, what are you going to do? You go to a museum, you get a preserved specimen. There are no preserved specimens of tiger sharks or white sharks. Or if they are, they're small, they're shriveled. There are no 14 or 18 or 20-foot sharks. Now, we're out there in the wild. So there are a lot of animals out there that simply, you're not going to have access to them in a traditional museum setting. And also, in a traditional museum setting, they're not going to be what I think of as a living animal. A living animal has a certain shape, it has a certain posture. In a museum, the preserved specimens that they have there are amazing and very valuable. They don't necessarily represent what is out there. So it's for scientists who want to study these animals, these 3D models can offer a lot of opportunities. And finally, education. And I think you guys are more well aware than anyone the potential value of VR and 3D work for education. Bringing these animals to life for educators, for high school teachers, for biology labs, and things of that nature. And to start the story about conservation, I want to talk to you about this frog. This is the Rob's fringe-limbed tree frog. It's a nice big frog. If you guys like frogs like I do, it's a really cool frog. There are no more left of them in the world. The last one died about a month and a half ago. There was one specimen left in the world. It was at the Atlanta Botanical Garden, and it died. And it died, the species went extinct. It's as simple as that. And New York Times ran an article on it, a really great article by my colleague Joe Mendelson, and the title of the article was "A Frog Dies in Atlanta and a World Vanishes with It." What he means is all the interactions the species ever had is gone. We have maybe we have the genetic data of this animal, and maybe one day we'll be able to bring animals back to life. But this is kind of a profound thing about what it means to preserve the heritage of life on Earth, and how do we do that? And how do we make sure that we don't forget that this animal existed? These are many of the issues that kind of compel me to begin this work. Many species are threatened with poaching, climate change, development. Many species you see here, some of them, sharks, a group I worked with, sharks have been around for 400 million years. They've been around for far longer than dinosaurs. Now, only now, at this very point in time, are they almost at the cusp of disappearing in many habitats. So that doesn't mean that we can throw up our arms and say, no good, but we need to think about ways to raise public awareness and to bring fresh new ways of getting people excited about these animals. I think 3D models and VR can do a lot to do that. Conservation efforts often rely on new levers to raise public awareness. People often get inundated with the bad news. They want to see the good news. They want to see something cool and interesting and new and fun that makes them excited about the animal again. There's also a couple kind of interesting problems to think about in this concept. It's hard to capture public attention for wildlife conservation. People are constantly inundated with the idea that tigers are going to go extinct. There's nothing we can do about it. Sharks are going extinct. It's a highly competitive field, and how do you actually, if you're the World Wildlife Fund or a wildlife agency, get people excited about animals? Also, when you think about education, current educational tools are often very passive and dated, and I think many of you in the VR community would be aware of this, that there's a tremendous potential of VR for educational work. But how do we get people engaged with animals or life on Earth in this venue? And I should say it's also very highly ineffective for many students, especially those with learning disabilities. One of my colleagues who I work with on this project is really excited about using these 3D models of living organisms to teach biology labs to students with learning disabilities. He teaches at Landmark College, and he believes this is a great venue. And finally, a fact that I've become aware of the last few years, if you go to Brazil or Ecuador, they're not going to let you take any animals out. Those days are gone. They realize now that biology of their system is far too valuable for that. Countries are shutting down their borders to any specimens being exported, which means if you study in a museum like American Museum of Natural History or the Museum of Comparative Zoology at Harvard, you're going to be very, very, very challenging to bring any specimens back. And this kind of raises the question, how do you document biodiversity? There's still lots of new species out there that we have to discover. How do we do that? And we have to do it, in this case, often in the field. So one solution that we've worked on is a collection of accurate, proportional, high-resolution digital 3D models of live animals, plants, and other organisms to support three basic missions: innovative wildlife conservation, immersive hands-on education, and open access science. Some sample applications to get your brain thinking about this a little bit is, for wildlife conservation, these 3D models can raise awareness or showcase the beauty of organism in a new way. Maybe you like sea turtles, but if you can interact with a sea turtle in a new way, you can see their morphology, see their shape in a new way, they're beautiful animals. These 3D models are beautiful. I found that people do respond to that. In the case of education, we're really excited about making what we call the biology lab of the future. Imagine if you're a college student and you can just access thousands of biological 3D specimens, and you can open them up, study their morphology, study their form, do measurements on them, and have them as a proportional set that you can work with. In terms of scientific discovery, we're really excited about using this to document biodiversity. We're excited about museums actually working with us, and many museums are as well, to create digital living specimens. Instead of just killing animals in the field, which I'll talk about in a second, they can capture the animal in the wild, capture 3D models, take some genetic data, and let that animal go, let that animal live. To give you an example of that, this is a species I worked with a colleague in the Philippines last year. We think this is a new species. That's pretty cool. Many people think it's all being done. We've already documented everything. It's just not true. People are finding new species all the time. In the Philippines, you're never going to bring this animal back alive. You have one choice. If you have permits, you can capture it and kill it, leave it in the Philippines for the Philippine scientists to study. If you want to capture the shape, the size, the way it looks, the color, those are all options with 3D work. On the other hand, what most scientists have done for over 100 years, if they have a species they think is a new species, they'll capture the species, they'll kill it, which sounds horrible, I know, but it's part of the scientific process. They'll bring it back, they'll study it, and they'll publish a paper on how it's a new species. That's not a bad way to go. I'm not an advocate of killing animals, but in this age where you're not allowed to do it anymore, how do we rethink that whole process? So this raised the question, how do you scan live animals? And even the bigger thing, how do you scan live animals in the wild? Because if you're going to do wild animals, you can't just do, fish or frogs in kind of a captive setting. What about all those wild animals that are not going to come into the lab? And this is kind of where my journey begins. A few years ago, I was doing some work with tiger sharks. And this is in the Bahamas. We've captured a tiger shark. That's me. I'm measuring it. And I was really interested in the morphology of tiger sharks. These are big, powerful sharks that we capture. We would make sure they're safe. We always let these sharks go in good health. And then we would measure them, and I would find some, and then we would let them go. So these sharks and once a shark is let go, it's never coming back. Okay, you're not going to get it back again. So I became fascinated with the fact that some sharks were just huge. They were fat, they were actually pregnant, which I thought was fascinating. And some sharks were skinny. And so I thought to my colleague, Neil Hammerschlag, he was in Miami, I said, how do we actually, is there a way to create a 3D model of a live shark, And he was like, I don't know, but we can try. And so I started looking at methods to do this. And the method that I'm sure many of you are familiar with is photogrammetry. And that immediately jumped out at me as the best way to do this. Now, photogrammetry, for those of you who aren't intimately familiar with it, is the basic process by which you have an object, you take a bunch of photographs of it, and then you use software such as Agisoft or Remake that Autodesk puts out, and it creates this very high-resolution 3D model. In terms of how high resolution is, now it's gotten to the point it's really all about photography. It used to be all about the software. The software has gotten good enough that you can create really good models. This immediately jumped out at me as a good way to do it. The catch is that you have a shark, for example, you have an animal out there, you only have a few seconds, you're going to need some kind of multi-camera rig that can capture that animal. So that's something that we did, and I'll talk to you about that in a second, but here's the basic premise of photogrammetry. You take multiple photos of an object, you load the photos into software such as Autodesk Remake or Agisoft, and you create 3D point cloud with color textures. This is an example of the shark that we did. This is a 3D blacktip shark. This is just the matrix. It's not with all the color textures on top of it. We caught this shark in Florida, and I'll show you a video of it. I'll show you actually some pictures of how we did the process. But this shows you kind of the output without the color texture. And so this is actually a live shark. It was not an anesthetizer or anything like that. So the solution we came up to is for this first challenge, how do you scan a shark, actually came from my work with lizards. And what happened was I had a grant for the Human Frontier Science Program, and we came up with this 4-camera multi-camera rig, which we originally called the beast cam because we were taking pictures of beasts. And we have a beast in our lab, this large tega, which was our first subject. These are some of the undergraduates who helped develop it. This is Dylan Briggs and Casey Smart. It's a 4-camera system. It's got a battery pack, it's got a tablet in the back, and you fire the cameras, cameras fire at once. They load the cameras down into a laptop in the back, and it turns out it's really good for animals that move. That really only stayed still for, say, 10 seconds. We could actually create a 3D model of this lizard in about 10, 15 seconds with this rig. So encouraged by that, we went out and tried to do it on a shark. So I went out with the Discovery Channel in April. It's always nerve-wracking when you capture sharks because you go with people and they're like, how many are we going to catch? Like we might catch nothing, but to actually we caught a bunch that day. So the Discovery Channel was there. We caught a bunch of sharks. And this is, I should point out for other scientific research, you catch a shark and then you pray that the shark is well behaved, and that is not the case with most sharks. They will thrash around, but many sharks, you have to begin to understand them. They're not vicious predators. They have to think like they do. And one of the things that we learned was that if you, for example, you capture a shark and you put a pump in its mouth, it actually thinks it's swimming, so it calms down. So here's a shark, here's a black-tip shark that we caught in Florida. It has a pump in its mouth that's pumping water through its gills, it's pumping water out. The animal is calm because it thinks it's swimming, literally. And so I did 2 different methods. I used the beast cam, this handheld thing with 4 different cameras, and then the shark was so well behaved that I took some other shots like this. And one of the things you have to learn, by the way, when you work with sharks is you really want to get those close-up headshots, but you do have to stay clear. 100% of shark bites happen at the head region. It's one of the things we learned. So through this process, and at this point I'm going to show you something that the shark model. Let's see here. Is this a mouse? Yeah, this is a mouse. Okay, cool. So I'm going to talk about it on my website shortly, but in this website you can download our 3D live shark. It's a black-tip shark. It's a 3D point cloud, and this shark was released in good health. So here it is. And you can see that, one of the things I'm very interested in is all the features of this shark, all the individual features, the shape, the size. It's got claspers. You see you've got a little bit of blood down there. That's not a big deal at all. You sometimes see that with sharks. And you can zoom in on it, and you can sort of see lots of features of the shark. You can see the glossy sheen. You can see the muscles here. It's a shark. It's a live shark. And we were pretty happy with that. You can see the gills and so forth, all the fins. So encouraged by this, we thought, okay, well, we made a live shark. What about some other animals that we can do? And that got us thinking more broadly about really a wider range of technologies that we needed. We realized that this handheld four camera system is not going to be ideal for every single animal. Animals all differ in size and shape. So we started coming up with a lot of different multi-camera rigs. And this BeastCam technology kind of platform is really many different platforms. The main principles of them, they're field portable. They can be taken anywhere in the world. So I carry that from Amherst in the back of my car. They can be either handheld or they can be packed on something like a tabletop. This is the BeastCam array that I brought. It's a 30-camera rig. You can put the animal like this is a small gecko in here. You can put it in here. You can fire all the cameras simultaneously. They're optimized for capturing the animal in 3D. And we have other motor-driven systems, and you can pack them away in a case. So you adapt the technology kind of to the task at hand. Now, the BeastCam array, which we just announced last week, and I'll be happy to shoot a demo for you, is our newest creation. It holds up to 30 cameras, and it's designed for really any small animal from between about 3 and 10 inches. This is a tokay gecko sitting there, and what you do is you fire all the cameras simultaneously. You can move these brackets up and down according to the animal. You can adjust everything, you adjust lighting. And we use a professional lighting system. We use professional photographers. That's who we work with. So our approach is very high resolution. We try and get the absolute best lighting, the best camera positions, everything to really create really high resolution models of these animals. You get some pretty comical situations. This was a marine toad that we scanned about a week ago. Now, to give you a sense for how large this animal is, this plate is 12 inches. Okay, so the toad is this high. And it's like, this is what living animals do to you. It just drives you insane because we have this lighting system all set up, and then this guy comes, I've got a toad, hands me the toad, and this thing creates, it's so high that it creates like shadows under its chin. I mean, it was just like, and the thing just was awesome. Look at that toad, it's so cool. So you just get thrown everything your way. And what we've done with that is you can actually come and we've been doing a bunch of different animals, and over the last 2 years with our system, we've been really focusing on, we create a website, and you can visit if you want. It's called digitlife3d.com. And really we've been focused on proof of concept. We wanted to, instead of just doing the same thing over and over again, we wanted to do a bunch of different animals, and these are the animals we've done. Whoops, let's see, escape. Whoops. Let's see. Let me try this again. Craig, how do you get out of the... Okay, I think I got it. Yeah, Craig, how do you get out of the... It's not working. Yeah, I tried that. This website. I'm trying to get back to it. Okay, great. That's the last time I do that, great, thanks. You can browse our collection of animals. Here's some I'll just show you. We did a 3D live scorpion, blacktip shark I just showed you. Here's a gecko. Here's a frog that we did in the Philippines. This was done in the field. Here's a horned frog. Here's a fowler's toad, and many different other animals. We have flowers like helicone flowers, birch fungus, oak gall, other geckos, because I have a lot of geckos in my lab. I'll just show you one more. This is a horned frog. I don't know if any of you have ever kept one of these for a pet. They're awesome. These animals get really big, and this is a horned toad that a colleague of mine had, and this kind of gives you a sense for the kind of the resolution we can kind of get. It's a little hard to see with this lighting, but you can just zoom around the animal and see all the little features of it. And you can see all the bumps, all the colors, all the eyeballs, how fat it is, and you can even see its butt. There's its butt. So it's like, I always have, one of my criterions is for a great model is, can you see its butt? Yes, you can see its butt. So forth. Now these can be shared, they can be downloaded. We're not allowing downloading yet, we're just allowing visualization, but we're eventually going to allow downloading. Anyone who wants to do creative nonprofit work can download these for free. And we plan to create a lot of these. So the whole goal is to do many, many, many of these. Okay. All right, it's the last time I go to the website. Let's see. So in terms of where we stand relative to other projects, I think what we do, number one, is really focus on high-resolution photogrammetry of living animals. So we're trying to combine all the elements of professional photography with multi-camera rigs, with really good lighting and really high-end accuracy, and we're trying to do living animals. So we're trying to combine two very challenging different worlds. You can think of sort of axis of higher quality and accuracy, and then diversity, and I won't really put other competitors in a sense in the marketplace, but actually it turns out there are no other competitors, no one else is crazy to even try this. So where we sit at is this interface of really high quality and high diversity of models. Now, the framework that we operate on is basically to create accurate high-resolution 3D models of life on Earth. We work with scientific partners and organizations. So next year we're going to go to the Atlanta Zoo, we're going to the Oklahoma City Zoo, we're going to go to the Philippines, we're going to go to Costa Rica, we're going to a whole bunch of sites, and we work with different scientists and partners all over the world to do this. We bring the Beastcamp technology to them. That's our key point. We take the tech into the field to work with rare and endangered species. Our goal is to actually work with some of the most rare animals in the world. And we plan to then distribute these 3D models online for open access science, education, and conservation. Now, I'm not alone in this effort. We actually have a great team. I just want to give some tribute to them. There's myself, we have Andy Danilchuk, Neil Hammerschlag, Christine Shepard. Christine is a photographer. Neil and Andy are both biologists. Neil is a shark biologist, so we have and Andy is a biologist who studies fish conservation. And we have many others that work with us. We have an advisory committee. We have educational and technical advisors, scientists, engineers, animators, photographers, but we are working pro bono. Everyone here is just doing this really because they feel compelled to work on this mission. Now, the question I have for you guys, and I would love to hear your thoughts, especially over a few beverages, was we actually don't have anyone on our team with expertise in VR at all. I was never trained in that, and we are lacking expertise in VR and higher-end animation and how to translate our model to the VR experience. One question I have for all of you is, how can 3D models of living organisms be expressed in VR and AR? Not just how can they be expressed. What's the story you would tell? How would you do this? If you could have access to all these high-resolution 3D models of many different living animals, what would you do with them? So I'll leave that as an open question for later discussion. Now, in terms of campaigns, where we're going with this, we are doing 2 campaigns. Our goal is to create high-resolution 3D models of all 7 species of sea turtles in the world. We're going to travel to Australia, Florida, the Bahamas, Greece, Costa Rica, and work with partners all over the world. We're raising money for that effort to create high-resolution, high-quality 3D models of all 7 sea turtle species. Why sea turtles? Very endangered. If you're familiar with the Great Barrier Reef, there was a recent survey that showed that 93% of the northern Great Barrier Reef is bleached. What animal lives off coral reefs? Hawksbill turtles do. They eat the corals on the reefs. If you have 93% bleaching, you're going to have a lot of turtles dying. So there's a huge interest in how can we bring these animals and get people excited about them. Another group that's going through a tremendous crisis are frogs in the world. There are over 4,500 species of frogs. And we plan to scan, I'm not going to promise all 4,500 species next year, but we plan to scan a whole representation of them within a year. Our goal is to create high-quality 3D models of about 40 to 60 represented species, and we're working with zoos. Many of the zoos have some of the rarest frogs in the world. And our field sites are going to be Atlantic City Zoo, Oklahoma City Zoo in the Philippines, and many other places as well. So, in conclusion, and I should say, we're also going to go to the Philippines next year. Now, those 3D models I showed you were great. You know, those are some captive pets. But I want to kind of whet your appetite about the amazing diversity out there. And these are animals you're never going to see in the pet trade. At least most of them you'll never see. These are some animals that I saw on the most recent trip to the Philippines. We had flying frogs. This is a frog that gets up to 200 grams and eats crabs. Okay, it's amazing. It has fangs on its 2 front lips. It's a fanged frog. It's an incredible frog. We have animals like this animal called Cerdodactylus, which is a really beautiful gecko. We have another crab-eating frog. We have flying dragons. Our goal is to do this in the field, and then many of these animals, most of them will be let go. Create these to map biodiversity of this. We're also making new gear. We're not satisfied with the gear we have. We want to make gear to do big things. And when I say big things, I mean things like jaguars, rhinos, Komodo dragons. We plan to do it from a reasonable distance. One thing I've learned is that there are ways to photograph animals in 3D without dying. And we plan to do that. So to do that, we're actually in the middle of developing what's called a Beast Cam stand. It's a system where it's a system like this where you can raise cameras up and down. You can move this around like a tripod. And if you have an animal like a Komodo dragon that's willing to sit for you, you can just arrange it around the animal in the zoo or a wild environment. You press click, it's done, and then take it before the animal even knows you're around. And we've tried it out. It's pretty successful. We're also working on doing small animals, and we just developed the BeastCam macro. If you go back and see the BeastCam array, you see a bunch of cameras. Okay, this time we just took every single camera. This is 24 cameras scrunched down as much as you can. And there's literally no space at all, and this can do really small animals like 0.5 inches to like 2.5 inches. Something like a small leatherback sea turtle. So, in conclusion, love to hear from you guys. Many of you might be interested in this project. Maybe some of you have kids that love animals. Maybe you're just interested that you love animals and you want to be part of it. Why support this project, or why just generally be interested in it? I go back to the Rob's tree frog. The fact that this animal went extinct, you know, it has a history, it has a heritage, and that preserving that heritage of life on Earth is something that's really valuable. But I'll also share with you the reasons I like the best, which is the reasons I think that I like to talk about this project, especially with young people who I find very much gravitate towards it, which is the fact that we're all part of something bigger, that the heritage of life is something worth fighting for, and this feeling that we have sometimes that there aren't new discoveries to be made is simply not true. There's many amazing, beautiful new species to be discovered, and that's something that we try and bring to life with this 3D work. And we're hoping to, and hopefully with the VR experience we can do that as well. So, in conclusion, thanks very much for sitting patiently and listening to me. And if any of you are interested in talking more about the project, I'd love to hear your thoughts. And you can check us out on digitallifethree.com. Thank you very much.
So yeah, thank you, Duncan. Super awesome. Just love the shark and that fact about being bitten at the front of the head. Definitely good to know.
I have all my body parts.
So there is food if you want to go ahead and get it, and we'll do about 5 minutes for Q&A if anyone has any questions for Duncan. So do we have any questions?
Yeah. So you talked about interactive education. How do you plan to take the images and make it sort of an interactive education? What are your thoughts around that?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, the way we've done it.
Can you repeat the question? Repeat the question.
Yeah, so the question was, how do you plan to take these pictures and make them interactive in terms of education? Yeah, so I'll be honest with you, there's a lot we don't know yet. I'd say all we're doing right now is we're trying to, our philosophy really now is to just put these, once the website right now just allows you to interact with the 3D model, but that's about it. That's pretty limited. What we plan to do pretty soon is make it so you can download the OBJ file or in different formats. So if you're an artist or a graphic artist and you really love frogs or love leopards, or you can do that. You can play with it, you can 3D print them. So we're going to allow that functionality with the thought being people are creative, you guys are creative, and you'll use it the way you want to use it for some awesome use. In terms of experiences in VR, we are totally open. That's why I'm here today. You've got to keep in mind that we spent 2 full years just developing the methodology, but in terms of how it's translating to an educational experience, I mean, do you have any thoughts? I'd love to hear.
Yeah.
You do? Okay. Yeah. Well, we'll answer some more questions and maybe we can talk. Yeah. Go.
Are you familiar with SciArc?
Yeah. They use laser scanning for buildings. Very cool stuff. And I think we're very similar to them. Our difference is we're doing living animals, but our website has a lot of similarities to SciArc because we provide educational content about the animals, and it's meant to be kind of open access science as well. Yeah.
Is there any interest in video? I mean, you asked the question about storytelling. Well, storytelling with still images is quite different than storytelling with moving images.
Yeah, it's great. You mean moving models? Models that can move. Is that what you mean? Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, I think these are files that you can add rigging to and you can make them move. Like the sea turtles of the world is actually, I'd love to talk to you some about that campaign because once we create the 7, no one has ever created a 3D sea turtle, at least not from a living animal. Once we create those, I would love to make them move and put them in kind of environments. Because they live in very different environments, like sea turtle, leatherback sea turtles live in these open pelagic environments with an open ocean, whereas other animals live in coastal environments. So, yeah, I think it's a great idea.
And also actually videoing it in time, since you have an image in time.
You mean imaging a moving animal?
Yeah.
Yeah. It can be done. That will sort of be round 2. Because that's going to require more. I think where that will go is video. Like for example, the next campaign I want to do is sharks in motion, because I do a lot of work in the Bahamas in a shallow area about 15 feet, and in this area there's lots of light.